And welcome back. This is episode 6 of the Lord's Prayer, a few reflections and thoughts. In the last couple of videos we looked at the context of Matthew, and now we're looking at the context of Luke. And some of this is a repeat and of the thoughts that Matthew had, but there's always a different twist or bend in what's being said that makes it gives a fuller picture, not just one person's. Obviously, something about the way Jesus prayed attracted the disciples. They saw the fact that John's disciples were taught by him to pray. And so they said, would you teach us to pray? We can see that prayer in your life is different than just the rote or the written prayers or the format of prayer that we're used to. And that's why Jesus introduced Father, because he introduced a sense of relationship and a sense of intimacy that was simply unknown to most people in the religious context. So Jesus rips it out of a religious rote context into a relational context. Very important. Also, I'd like to quote from Joel Green. He says that the Lord's Prayer contains a worldview centered on a gracious God, on dependence on God, and on the imitation of God, all understood against an eschatological horizon in which the coming of God and his sovereignty figures prominently. So these prayers, this prayer itself, had a trajectory. It was looking toward the fulfillment of kingdom, of the great prophetic words of God to his people, of the king arriving and establishing his authority, which was all centered and fulfilled, of course, in the life of Jesus, but in ways that were most unexpected. And because of that, by many rejected. So the picture of persistence crops up in Luke's thinking. He talks about the fact that a persistent person will get what they want. That's what he's saying. And he used this picture of the mechanism of hospitality. This was a vital social mechanism. The importune knocker played on this. He kept knocking, probably waking up the entire family. Shameless is a better word, and most inconvenient. But this is where Jesus is telling us that need may be larger than convention. And friendship may not do it. It may take something more to get the loaves of bread in this particular case. Politeness doesn't always open doors, can keep them thoroughly shut. And also there's this picture of a father. That these terms, how much more, were a standard Jewish argument. And this series of examples is so self-evident when he talks about a fish and a serpent and bread and a scorpion. It's like, of course, a father would not do that. Well, Jesus said that's exactly the point. And then he introduced something that Matthew didn't talk about, and that's he talked about the good things of Matthew and other writers as being the Holy Spirit. Because what he's saying is the Father will not deny if you asked for the Holy Spirit. This would have been unheard of. The Holy Spirit was the domain of kings and priests and prophets, hadn't been basically heard of for close to 400 years. So some even wondered where the Spirit was. Had the Spirit left Israel? And Jesus is saying, no, the Spirit is available to those who in simple faith, like that of a child with a father, ask. This was most unexpected and would have been considered quite radical, that they asked for the Holy Spirit, which in our understanding is asking for God himself to fill us, which is the greatest gift. And so that sums up the actual thoughts and the context of Luke.